Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of our webinar series geared towards focused on survivors of sexual assault. My name is Angie Railing. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a prevention coordinator here with WCASA. We are super excited to have Her Wellness today do our first kick off the series, do our first series for survivors, and they will also be back in December. So we will have a webinar every other month until August of next year. So keep on the lookout for the communication moving forward. We'll post it on our Facebook pages, our listservs, make sure advocates know so they can pass it on to the survivors they're working with. And also our MailChimp newsletter. So please keep on the lookout for that. Registration for December will be starting in just a few weeks because time is flying. It has been flying for about 1.5 years now. So we're going to do some quick introductions from my colleague, Vanessa. She's going to introduce herself, and then we are going to pass it over to Her Wellness so they can get started. Again, just a reminder, we are recording this webinar, but everything will be anonymous. People won't be seen, like the chat won't be seen or anything like that. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And I think Malia also said if you would like to unmute yourself, you can also do that. But if you feel more comfortable sending any of us private messages, please feel free to do that. All right, Vanessa, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Moss, she, her. I'm the Office and Trainings Coordinator here at WCASA. If you do have any questions about registering for any of these webinars or any of that sort of trainings, webinar related stuff, you can absolutely get in contact with me. And if you do contact us by our phone or that general WCASA email, I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. And I'm going to pass it over to Malia. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Angie, and thank you very much, Vanessa. Thank you for the invite for this opportunity to really just to speak and share space with other survivors. Aloha, awinala, he Hawaii o Malia ku'inoa. My name is Malia. I'm Native Hawaiian. I have some team members here with us today from the Her Wellness Institute. Her Wellness is located in Milwaukee at 3136 West Kilbourne Avenue. Her stands for Healing Intergenerational Roots. And what we do is we provide free mental health and wellness services for victims of crime, and particularly Indigenous and underserved communities. We are just so honored to be here today. As myself, I am a survivor. I know we are a survivor-led organization, and many of our team members and our founders are survivors as well, whether that be victims of crime, sexual assault, or murdered and missing Indigenous women, and more. So just know that you are in a space where you know, we're not here to tell you anything. We're not here to determine what your path is for you. We want you to know that as you are here, this is a warm and safe place for you. If at any point you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. You can direct them to the WCASA team members or our Her Wellness Institute team members. However, maybe not to me specifically, because I don't want the chat screen to be seen as I'm sharing screen. So just know that you're here and we support you. If at any point things get heavy or you're feeling restless, do know that we encourage you to get up, get a drink of water, take some deep breaths, stretch, move around, and come back when you're ready and you feel good. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And I would like to have our Her Wellness team members introduce themselves. Oops, let me go back. Here we go. And we'll start with John.
Thank you so much, Malia. And, you know, we're just so honored to be here. So thank you so much, WCASA. And thank you so much, you know, all the relatives. We use the terminology relatives to talk about, the people that we serve, just because it just seems more personalized, and we are here working alongside with you. So thank you so much for everyone who joined us today. And, my name is John Yang, and I am a first generation Hmong American, which means that, my family arrived here as refugees in 1993. And I was the first one of my family born in the United States. And, if you're from Wisconsin, or, Wisconsin has the third largest Hmong population. So if you're in Wisconsin, you may have heard about the Hmong people. And my role here at Her Wellness is I am a CARES victim specialist. CARES, which stands for Community Advocate Resource and Emotional Support. So basically that's what my title is. I work with the community, and I help as an advocate, and I provide resources, whether it's internal services that we have here, or, external services, because we understand that, Her Wellness, we can't provide everything that you're looking for. And it's all about community, getting you connected to the community and just sharing. And it's all about you taking care of yourself and making sure that you're healing the way how you want to heal. And then also providing emotional support. We do have a CARES warm line for anyone, who may be struggling and just want to have someone to talk to and to provide emotional support. It's not therapy, meaning that we don't set like treatment goals. It's just coming in as you are and just kind of processing what you're going through. And then victim specialists, because again, as an advocate, we provide victim advocacy, and we also have a staff member who is working for legal, providing legal services as well. So you'll kind of see a lot of us, we dabble in multiple roles. It's not just one role. And then with that, I will pass it on to Jessica.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Gonzalez. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Jessica González. Gracias por la oportunidad de estar aquí con ustedes y tomar un poquito de su tiempo y compartirlo. My first language is Spanish, and I am Mexican and American, and my role in Her Wellness Institute is bilingual community advocate. I am a survivor too, and I just want to say thank you for give you the opportunity to be here with you. And just like Malia said, if you want to send a message, feel free to do it. It's a good time to grab a tea, water, maybe a blanket, whatever you feel comfortable for this time. I will pass to Joe.
Hello, everyone. My name's Joe Mckenzie. I'm an enrolled member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. I work at the Her Wellness Institute, mostly in virtual support services. My background is mainly in social justice. And I'm super excited to be here today with all of you. I have my water with me, my coffee with me, because I'm still drinking coffee this early. And I've also got my favorite fidget with me, which is my embroidery. So I'm super happy to bring that into this space, as it is a traditional craft for me and my family. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it back to Malia.
Thank you so much, John, Jesse, and Joe. Relatives, I want to let you know that, all of us are here to support you, each with our own unique gifts, experiences, education, and background. And do know that that is part of what the Her Wellness Institute does. As we are focusing on decolonizing mental health, we really do believe in holistic care and a therapeutic web. It's not just a therapist or an advocate. There are different programs and services that we offer. And that's why there's so many of us here to support you right now in real time. Before we get started, I would like to do things the way that we do as Indigenous people. And actually, Joe, if you would like, being that you are First Nations here in Wisconsin, I would like to invite you to do a land acknowledgement.
Well, thank you so much, Malia. So this is a land acknowledgement that we have borrowed from the UW Milwaukee Electoquini Institute. And it states that we acknowledge in Milwaukee, where most of us are at the Her Wellness Institute, that we are on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homeland, along with the southwest shores of Michigamme, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present.
Thank you very much, Joe. All right, so as we get started, I just want to do a check-in before we start getting into it and invite people, anyone here, which by the way, we refer to you all as relatives. As Indigenous and First Nations people, we do believe that we are all related, related being human beings, but also our plant relatives, our winged relatives, our finned relatives, our 2- and 4-legged relatives, and every being on this earth. So I want you to know that if you hear us referring to relatives, we are speaking about the people that we serve, or we're speaking about you, about us collectively. As we are coming from the Her Wellness Institute, and our focus is on decolonizing mental health through culturally rooted practices, as well as social justice and that decolonization of mental health, do know that things might sound a little bit different. You are talking to advocates, but you are also talking to people who are very rooted in our own cultural practices. So what is community activated medicine? Community activated medicine is a term that was coined and developed by our CEO and founder, Leah Denny. Leah Denny is Native Hawaiian. She is also the mother of Oneida children. She is a survivor, like most of us here at the Institute. And basically, I mean, we could go through this and you can read through this, but I would like to say in my words what community activated medicine is. And essentially there's 2 parts. Community activated medicine means that the people are the medicine. That means when we all come together in a collective, whether you're sitting with your friends or family or people who you trust and who care about you, or in this circle right now, when we come together with that intentionality, each of us has our own sacred path. And our path is our path in self-care, wellness, mental health, and healing. And that path is synchronous with your path and journey in life. So every day that we wake up is the day that we are on our healing path, every time. And so with each of us on our path, as we're intersecting collectively right now with that intentionality of healing, this allows us the opportunity to ignite that fire within ourselves, that light within ourselves. That's the power of community activated medicine. So not only do we have the ability to hold space for others, we're in this virtual circle, shoulder to shoulder right now. Nobody greater than or less than. Yes, I have the mic. Yes, I have a title of an advocate, but that does not mean that my medicine is stronger than yours. It does not mean that I'm a sage or a medicine woman. It does not mean that what I have to contribute is greater than you or less than. We are all here in this circle together, shoulder to shoulder. Community activated medicine means that not only can we provide each other with that emotional support, with respect, with dignity, without stigma, without judgment, without agenda, but community activated medicine also means that we have within ourselves the ability to do our own part of our healing. We'll talk more about community activated medicine as we go on, but do know there's a lot of different parts to it, but basically healing is not complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it's not always easy. And as members and team members of the Her Wellness Institute, we are here to walk with you alongside your journey and to remind you that your sacred path in healing, wellness, self-care, mental health your sacred path in life. This is for you to determine. As it is your sacred path, I want to remind you that although we are here to walk alongside you, and those that you love and trust, your family, your friends, maybe they're people in, healthcare professionals or providers, whoever that is in your circle, they cannot determine for you what you need. Only you can determine that. And I believe that strongly. And so nobody is here in community activated medicine to tell you when you're going to heal, or why you need to heal, or what it is you need to heal. You could be anywhere on your healing path, and that path is for a lifetime. And so I want you to know, relatives, that when we're here in this space, this is an opportunity for you to be real, to allow yourself to take a moment to take off that mask of, hey, I'm okay. That mask of always feeling like you have it together. That mask of being strong. That mask of being the tough person. That mask of always being happy. When we come together in community activated medicine, this is our opportunity to allow ourselves to take that mask off, to be vulnerable, to come as we are, and to come authentically. And we can talk more about that as we go on in this. So before I go to the next slide, I do want to encourage our relatives to encourage you to check in. And by check in, I mean, how are you doing today? And by what I mean is, how are you doing is, it's not just a polite, expectation, but literally saying, how are you today? What's going on? How are you feeling? Are you okay? Are you not okay? And for those of you who may not be used to hearing, how are you, in a very genuine sense, we can start with a body scan. And so I'm going to invite you, we can do this right here, right now, in real time. You can sit, lay, or recline however you feel comfortable. You might be in your jammies laying on the couch. You might be at your desk. You might choose to sit up or lay down. You can have your eyes open or closed. And we're just going to take a moment to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And we're going to do a body scan. As we breathe, I invite you to start thinking about areas, allowing yourself to feel and connect to those physical areas of your body that might be feeling tension, physical discomfort, might even manifest as pain, tightness, or soreness. And we'll start at the top of the head. You can even touch those areas of the body if you want to. We're going to pay attention to those areas because those areas can tell us if we are needing to pay attention. Our body is indicating and telling us what we might need. Starting at the forehead, deep inhale. How your eyebrows, are they pinched? Your forehead tense? We'll work our way down to our temple, jaw. As we breathe through our neck and shoulders, let's go ahead and scan from the top of our back down to our shoulder blades, our spine, our lower back, and our tailbone. Remember, as we breathe, paying attention to areas where there might be tightness, discomfort, or pain. We'll go ahead and work our way up to our shoulders, to our biceps and triceps, our elbows, forearms, wrists, palms, and fingers. Breathing through it, paying attention to those areas. We'll go ahead and take a scan to our chest. Does your chest feel tight or neutral? And we'll go ahead and work our way down to our tummies. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're full. Maybe there's butterflies in your tummy. Maybe you still feel dinner in there from last night. Maybe your tummy's empty. And we'll work our way down to our hips, our thighs, inner and outer, our knees. How do they feel? Our shins and our calves, our ankles, heels, the arches, ball and toes on our feet. And let's go ahead and take a deep breath and scanning our heart space. Now, this is where we can pay attention to our feelings and our emotions. Are there feelings or emotions that are lying heavy in your heart right now? Does your heart feel like maybe there's a piece missing? Does it might feel like there's some brokenness? Some people talk about an emptiness or a hole in their heart. Or maybe your heart feels full of joy or love. Or maybe your heart feels light and free. Let's take another deep breath. And lastly, we'll go ahead and scan our thoughts. What is your mind telling you? Has your mind been racing? Do you feel overly caffeinated? Maybe your mind feels exhausted from worry or stress. Maybe there was some thoughts last night and you felt like you were in a rabbit hole and your head was just spinning, and maybe you were just replaying something that you couldn't let go of. Maybe those thoughts carried on into your sleep where you felt like you weren't even sleeping or dreaming, but you just felt like you were worrying the whole night through. Let's take a deep breath. Or maybe you feel well rested. Maybe you feel in for the day. And so wherever you are, relatives, I encourage you to remember that mind-body connection, to remember that body connection, to become grounded to yourself in the present moment. When you're not quite sure how you're feeling, the body is one of the most immediate indicators we can go to. I know how I'm feeling right now. I'm sitting on the floor because that's how we do it here. Very indigenized space. And I'm a little uncomfortable, so I'm going to shift. And so with that, relatives, I encourage you to check in and paying attention to those areas. Now, you can also, if you choose to, when you're doing a body scan, you can draw a little gingerbread man. You can see here on the picture, and you can go ahead and fill in areas where you may feel sharp pain using an X, or maybe if you're feeling, a numb or tingling, you can do little zigzags or whatever the symbols are for you. Paying attention to those areas, paying attention to what your body is trying to tell you. And you can do this throughout the presentation. You can do this at any time. And you can see here that our gingerbread man feels it in the shoulders and in the arms, and that's where I feel it. And relatives, feel free also to check in where you are feeling it. I feel it a little bit in my lower back and my tailbone. Sometimes it's in the hips or in the knees. Sometimes it might be in the feet. Maybe it's in your throat or your neck. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John, and he can do a little explanation about mental health.
Thank you so much, Malia. And again, relatives, feel free to let us know authentically, what's going on. If you feel comfortable sharing, feel free to share with us. That's one thing that we do here at Her Wellness, is when we ask you, how are you doing? Or, if we notice that there's something wrong, we ask about it. We truly want to know, what's going on or how you're feeling. So if you feel comfortable, feel free to share with us. Again, only if you feel comfortable. And then with that, let's talk about what is mental health. So this is a definition from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, just defining that mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also determines how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. And mental health is an important at every stage of life, and it starts as early as childhood, and it progresses up, each and every single day. Even as adult, we continue to experience that. And it just mentions that over the course of your life, if you've experienced mental health problems, your thinking, mood, and behaviors could be affected. And mental health problems are common and help is available. And we will be talking about some resources towards the end as well. And with that, Malia, could you move to the next slide?
Sure. And John, if also I could add to, if I could just take a moment, and WCASA team members and any of our team members, feel free to unmute too if you have anything to add. I did want to say about mental health right now is that the world that we are walking in today is difficult, right? We're dealing with a global pandemic. We are dealing with, at least in the United States and in many other places, we're dealing with political and social division. We are dealing with our jobs. We're dealing with our trauma. We're dealing with the responsibilities for our children, our grandchildren, our spouses, our significant others, our friends, our family, our parents. We have our bills, we have our transportation. Many of us are working multiple jobs. Some of us lost our jobs. And so we're in situations right now also too, where like we have society who is telling us, we can solve our problems by buying things. If you're on social media, which you probably are, Facebook is telling you you're too skinny, or you're too fat, or you're too small in the chest, or your waist is too big, or you have too many wrinkles, or your hair is too gray, or you're not smart enough, or you're not young enough, or you're not old enough. And when we are dealing with a society that is in this way, it makes sense that right now you may not be okay. It makes sense that mental health is a reason why we are here. It makes sense that you feel disoriented. And I want you to know that being here, being part of this conversation, and allowing yourself to reflect on how it is you feel and what you need, that is the way that we continue to walk our wellness path. Mental health is for everybody. And so I just wanted to help destigmatize that. If you're, there is a lot that's attached to those words. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you so much, Malia. And that really kind of goes into why Leah, our CEO and founder, actually created Her Wellness to provide free mental health services, because she believes that, healing shouldn't cost anything. When we're hurting, why do we need to pay out of pocket or need insurance, and see if insurance is willing to help us heal? Which is why Leah created Her Wellness to provide free mental health services, because it shouldn't cost you to heal, because we're all hurting and we deserve to heal. And not because you're rich and you can afford the best treatment, but everyone, regardless of your class or your background, you deserve to heal, and you deserve quality treatment. Just because you have money doesn't mean that you deserve the best treatment. Everyone, regardless of your income, deserves quality treatment, which is why we have Her Wellness. And then what is trauma? So trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. Again, just trauma for everyone is so different, because what may be a traumatic event for you, that person who is next to you who may be experiencing that same event may not find that as traumatic. So just kind of knowing that trauma is very individualized. And there's so many things that happen, such as like immediately after an event, shock and denial are pretty typical. And then also long-term reactions, such as like unpredictable emotions, lots of flashbacks, especially like you've been in events where it was very traumatic for you. Having those, being around a certain area or being around certain people can trigger those flashbacks. And then, it can also even be shown in physical symptoms like headaches or nausea or even body pain, because sometimes when we push it aside and we don't address those traumas, it comes out in different forms. And sometimes it's body aches. So just kind of knowing that and just kind of understanding that, sometimes trauma is physical. And then it talks about like acute trauma results from a single incident. There's chronic trauma is repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse. There's complex trauma, exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events. And then there's also historical trauma that ends up being intergenerational and transgenerational. So one thing about Her Wellness is that we're huge about this historical trauma. And for some of you, you may not be aware of what is historical trauma. And historical trauma is talking about trauma that may be passed on from generation after generation. Maybe it's your grandma may have gone through some sort of traumatic event, and then that is passed down to your parents, and then that's passed down to you. Sometimes you may not realize it. And Malia, I don't know if you have an example of historical trauma, because I do know that our Indigenous people have a long history of historical trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, and especially when we're talking about our Black, Indigenous, and people of color, our BIPOC populations, we generally have trauma that is, you know, attached from things like colonization, genocide, and so on and so forth. And that's not to discredit those who don't belong in that population or you know, who fall under that category. But I do want to say that historical trauma, an example that would be the residential and boarding schools that have happened all the way up until the late 1970s in Canada and the United States, where people were literally, children were literally removed from their homes and placed into what they call schools. And really what they were was they were genocidal concentration camps. They were taken from their parents. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They were abused. You know, they were subject to a lot of violence, oftentimes rape, and we've come to find out as of recent, as they're excavating the graves, that more often than you know, you can imagine that it ended up actually resulting in the loss of their lives. So that's an example of historical trauma for our you know, for our Black brothers and sisters, our Black relatives. You know, slavery. The same thing. I'm from Native Hawaii, and being a Native Hawaiian, part of my ancestry is also Chinese, and the Chinese, Koreans, and Filipinos and Japanese were enslaved in Hawaii for cash crops, for pineapple, for sugarcane. So that's how we can understand historical trauma. Now, many of the relatives that we work with now, they're dealing with that trauma that gets passed on to them because it was their parents or their grandparents who were in these boarding schools. And because they weren't raised by parents, they weren't raised with love, they weren't raised with understanding. They had their religion, they had their voices taken from them, they had their spirituality taken from them, their language, the way that they understand and perceive the world. Now they you know, they have their own children and their own grandchildren, and it's trying to you know, to raise children in a way that they weren't grown up, you know, to model, you know, that loving parent-child relationship. And so we work with relatives intergenerationally, where there might be, you know, a grandparent and then a parent and then their children and then their grandchildren who are still experiencing the effects of historical trauma.
I just want to jump in really quick, because when we talk about specific like symptoms of historical trauma, it can be kind of hard to like nail down, right? When we're talking about these giant events that have happened, what things do we see actually passed down from parent to child? Some of them we see in everyday homes, like food insecurity. That concept of, I don't know where my next meal is coming from, can cause things like putting food insecurity into our children who have never experienced that. You know, hoarding food, buying too much food, over budgeting on food can be just those common things. So historical trauma can lead to things that don't look like something a person is dealing with, but because it was passed in through their family, it creates this sense of hurt and pain that they just don't know how to deal with. And that's the kind of historical trauma that we like to talk about, because it's the ones that we don't understand. And it's the ones that people confuse when they see it in us. They go, oh, that person, they've got a great job. They've got cars, they pay their bills on time. why are they so upset about that? And we say, well, it's because it was in my family. It's because my mother dealt with this. It's because my grandfather dealt with this and his father before him. And these were the lessons they taught me to survive, because that's what it was to them, is it was a tool of survival. And so they felt that they needed to pass it on. And so it can feel really upsetting from both sides of the conversation. If you live it, you see, this is a tool that my parents thought I needed. And outside of it, you can say, well, it's not necessarily a tool that you need anymore. But from both sides of that conversation, it can feel very upsetting because we don't necessarily understand where it came from or why it is that we keep it.
Thank you so much, Joe, for that insight. And also, I did want to say lastly, too, is tying that into masking and relatives. We all wear our masks. And, what is that mask serving to protect? And as an Indigenous woman, I found for me, even going to schools, going into an affluent, suburban, majority white school, what we had come to find was that like even my family's history, it was invisible a lot, and that invisibility kind of can develop this mask where you begin to say that, I don't matter, they matter first, this matters first, swallowing that, the pain that you might have, knowing, like, for example, that my father wasn't able to vote, even though he fought in even though he was in the Vietnam War, right? And he didn't even have the ability to vote because he was born Native Hawaiian. And when he was 12, he became an American, and he didn't even immigrate. It was just what happened territorially in Hawaii. So you have all these really interesting things. And for me to grow up and to see my father, who always put himself last and always swallowed his needs and always felt inherently that there was something in him that didn't matter as much as anybody else. And then to carry on those intergenerational traumas do create sometimes this invisibility. And then we begin to sort of hide ourselves, our need, and then that authenticity begins to disappear, and therefore our needs begin to get buried. So thank you. And John, we'll go back.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, and definitely historical trauma also affects like the Hmong people, because again, my family arrived here as refugees because of the helping the US CIA during the Vietnam War. And even to this day, many Hmong, to this day, Hmong people are not really recognized as veterans. And they don't qualify for any veteran benefits. And it's been over 40 years. And it wasn't until about like 10 years ago that Hmong people were really being recognized as veterans during the Vietnam War. And there's been over 40,000 Hmong soldiers who died during the war. So it just really shows the trauma and just the disrespect. It really just kind of hurts. And I hear about it, I see it. So that's trauma that's being passed down to me historically, and also knowing my history of my people, of war after war and genocide, and then being displaced and coming to the United States, and then assimilating, and then instead of integrating our culture with American culture, we're assimilating. So we're losing our language, our culture, and just like many of the Indigenous people, within the next few generations, the culture and language will be gone. And that's also very saddening, just to kind of know that. So sometimes historical trauma, sometimes you may not realize it. And sometimes it's like, well, it's survival skills because my parents did it or my grandparents did that. And sometimes you may not recognize that that's trauma from historical past and stuff like that, but it is, because sometimes we just know it as, this is just my norm, and this is what I have to do to survive or make it to the next day. And some people may not have experienced that, or maybe you haven't, you know about it, but you haven't explored deep enough into it. And that's one thing that we do at Her Wellness, is we really dive in deep into your historical trauma and the root cause of it. And that's one thing that's different about us, is that we address the root cause. A lot of mental health space just address the behavior about, oh, you're acting out this way, so we're going to treat you based off your behaviors instead of like, well, let's figure out why are you acting out this way? What's causing you to behave a certain way? And, you know, just giving you medication to cover up that behavior still doesn't address the root cause. So that's one thing that we're different at Her Wellness, is that we seek to find the root cause. As painful or as scary or, you know, whatever feelings you have about going back into that trauma, if you don't ever address it, it's going to resurface, or it's going to show in different ways, whether, you know, it's mental health related or whether it's physically. So that's something that we talk about a lot here at Her Wellness, is the trauma. It's scary, but we're here with you. We want to walk alongside with you, and whatever you feel like you need for your medicine to heal, that's up to you. It's very individualized. We understand that. What works for me may not work for Joe, or may not work for Malia. And we also understand that. And I do want to say, like, you know, Her Wellness, we all come from different walks of life and different beliefs and different religious background. And there's nothing wrong with that. We really talk about that because you get to acknowledge, and you don't have to agree with it, and you don't have to understand it. But society tells us that if it doesn't align with our belief, then they're wrong, or we should hate them. And that's one thing that at Her Wellness, we're like, no, we don't hate you because you believe something different. We want to understand and talk about it. We can't have dialogues nowadays unless it's aligning with your belief. And that's the issue with the world, is that people can't talk without yelling at one another. When you're yelling at one another, no one's listening. So how can you solve a problem if no one's listening? Sorry, went off on a tangent. With that, Malia, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, okay. I did also want to add too, is that relatives, you know, historical trauma may not be something that you were affected by, but also I encourage you to think about, you know, we all have trauma. And our founder, Leah, always reminds us that we all have a story. And you have a story, and your story matters. You matter, and your healing matters. And so once you can, you know, these tools are here to help you to identify, you know, maybe some things that you can begin to work through. And, you know, things like historical trauma, they can relate to things like chronic trauma. You know, if you come from generations or generational trauma, if your family comes from abuse, violence, and then you find yourself in a chronic traumatic situation where that may be repeating itself, you know, let's take a look at, you know, maybe where is this stemming from and what we can do about it.
I would like to add something only about that, because sometimes about trauma, we don't really perceive what it is. And sometimes if we went to the generational or maybe the tree family, you will notice that like in the family, they have different kind of aisles, for example, diabetes, anxiety, depression, or they don't really can connect like what is happening. But when they are deep about what is happening in the family, you will find more resources and like answers about, like you can see like your grandma has this kind of aisle. So sometimes also the trauma is just like a circle in the family for generation and generation. So something is always connected, the spiritual, the physical, the mental. So trauma is really a huge part. So just to have that in mind too, when do you know sure what is trauma and you are repeating patterns you never can realize. Your family, your dad, I don't know, migraines maybe in the family, all the family has that, is for the trauma you have. So also I would like to say, if you want to keep a moment and like try to know a little bit more about your family, you will find answers about your life now. And the hope is now you can change this. You can slow down, you can pause, you can do something different for you and for the future generations. So I will pass to you, Malia.
Thank you very much, guys. And stress.
So what is stress? And then this is a Harvard University definition of stress. The future of any society depends on its ability to foster the healthy development of the next generation. Extensive research on the biology of stress now shows that healthy development can be derailed by the excessive or prolonged activation of stress response systems in the body and brain, such as toxic stress can have damaging effects on learning, behaviors, and health across the lifespan. And again, stress can, is basically a reaction to changes in your life, or based off of what you're experiencing. And it can be like, there's various forms of stress. There's time stress, where maybe if you're like, time restricted and you know that, oh, I have to be at my job by a certain time, that causes stress. Or if like, I have to go pick up my kids because school is out, that causes stress. There's also anticipatory stress, meaning that you're constantly worrying about like something bad's going to happen, or maybe you've been in a situation and then you just keep anticipating that, oh, because of that experience, of that trauma, something's bad's going to, you just get that feeling, you're anticipating it. Situational, meaning that, sometimes there's curveballs that is thrown in our lives, and you have to react to it immediately. And, it's hard to adapt very quickly and on the go. So that causes stress, or encounter stress of just being around lots of people and encountering various people, and lots of people can cause additional stress. There's a lot of different types of stress. And then Amelia, you can move on to the next slide.
I just wanted to add also to the stress as well, relatives, that, I encourage you to step back and just to take a moment and, identify some of those stressors in your lives. And, let me actually just go back to that slide, because let me see if I can do this. Maybe I can't. I don't know how to do it. But just identifying stress that could be, toxic versus, day-to-day stress of, you might be like going to work and it may not be a bad day or anything like that, but you're dealing with with the traffic, you're dealing with deadlines, you're dealing with things like that. Whereas, toxic stress could be something like a relationship, a toxic relationship, whether that be familial or relational. And to really just see, if you can identify relatives in your life, what some of those types of stressors may be for you. Okay. Anything else to add to that, guys, or we'll go on to this next slide?
And trauma and stress goes hand in hand. And oftentimes unaddressed traumas can, stress you out, and like the anticipatory, especially if like you've been through a traumatic event. In your mind, you keep anticipating like, oh, I have a feeling something's going to go wrong because you went through a traumatic event, and just kind of circling through your head. Or you're like, I've been in a situation similar to this, and I feel like something's going to happen. And that causes you a lot of stress as well. So it's like what Malia said, just really listening to yourself, being in tune, because oftentimes we go through our day-to-day life and we're like, okay, well, I'm feeling stressed, but you don't really pay attention to it. You don't put the energy into it and figuring out like what's causing the stress. And again, that really goes back to what we do at Her Wellness, of like really addressing those traumas, finding that root cause of what's causing those reaction or behavior that is being shown in your day-to-day life, or that reaction that you have. So again, stress and trauma really do go hand in hand. And once you're able to understand, you can change that behavior, and you can start finding coping skills, which we will talk on a little bit more in the next few slides.
Thank you, John. So, and as we're talking about these different forms of trauma, part of that cycle too can also lead into trafficking. And so relatives, I know this is, we're getting deeper and we're having tougher conversations. So remind yourself that if you need to go get a drink of water or take a deep breath, maybe you need to step away. Do what you need to do so that you can feel okay. But, in regards to trauma, so if you have ever heard of Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women, MMIW, this is sort of, this is something that's just really, really prevalent in many places, right? But also for our Indigenous women. I am actually a survivor of sex trafficking through my twin sister, Miley Lehua Chow. And she was trafficked through the pipeline that goes from Wisconsin to Las Vegas. She was trafficked around 21, 22, and then she attempted to leave at the age of 24, and she was not able to leave. And her life ended in Las Vegas. And I do strongly believe that trafficking people, from the objectification of Indigenous people, from also sexual abuse as a child, and the failure to recognize how to help her, the failure by our institutions, and also by family not being aware of how to address it. And so you can see what one of the things that can happen. And labor trafficking as well, which is very, very real. Businesses, farms, temp agencies, these places where people are really still being exploited for power and control, for money. And so for those of you relatives out there, if you are finding yourself in one of these situations, there are resources for you out there. We will give some resources. Know that the Her Wellness Institute, we've helped relatives, and we continue to help relatives in these situations, that you are not alone. And there is no judgment for you either. If you are an individual who is a victim of trafficking, know that you do not have to be ashamed to reach out for help. And you can see examples here of that power and control. And so yeah, if you need help, relatives, you can always reach out to us and we can help you find those resources, or we may be able to work with you directly, whether that be through advocacy, community activated medicine, support groups, any of our virtual programs. It could be emotional support, possibly even therapy and counseling, occupational therapy, culture as medicine. There's a lot of modalities that we can use in a therapeutic web to help. So for those of you out there who are directly impacted by trafficking, whether that be through labor or sex trafficking, we want you to know that there's never a point at which any of us from the Her Wellness Institute team are going to tell you that you have to stop, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. That is something for you to determine. However, if and when you are ready to take that step, when you decide that you are in a situation where you deserve healing, you deserve to be seen, when you feel like it is time to release what's not serving you, we can go from survivorship to thrivership. And again, that timeline is yours. Sometimes we work with relatives who are being trafficked, who are on the streets, and maybe all that person needs in that time is just for someone to say, hey, you know what? You're not alone. Hey, you need someone to talk to without judgment. We're here. And I also wanted to mention to anyone out there, I, as a community healer and an advocate, as well as Jessica, we are not mandated reporters. So if there's something that you need to say and you're afraid that other institutions or the police might get involved, or you might be coerced in doing something that you're just not ready for, I want you to know that being that Jessica and I are not mandated reporters, you can come to us and you can have that conversation. And I would also encourage you to have those conversations with people in other organizations as well, and just ask them straight out, are you a mandated reporter? Okay, if not, then you might be more willing to open up and feel that you're in a safer place. The Mana Award. So I want to talk a little bit about this. In Olelo, Hawaii, in the native Hawaiian language, mana means energy. It's that universal life force that begins at the center of the universe and irradiates outwards infinitely, forever into time. And that mana is within all living things, including us as people. And so the Mana Award stands for Miley's Award, my twin sister, Nourishing Ambition. And as a survivor, I am a survivor of domestic violence. I am a survivor of rape. I am a survivor of sexual assault. I am a survivor of sexual assaults from my family. I am a survivor of violence. I am a survivor of a lot of things, but it comes to that point sometimes in our surviving journey that we choose to allow ourselves to then thrive. And so every year we have this event. This year it's Saturday, November 13th. It's called the Red Sands event. And every year we choose a survivor, someone who has overcome, whatever their story is, who's overcome. Maybe it's the trafficking, maybe it's the domestic violence, maybe you took something, that had your story and you turned it into a way to help other people. This award happens every year. So just keep this in mind. Our Red Sands event, Saturday, November 13th, I believe, is it from 1 to 5, Jesse or John or Joe, if you can confirm?
Yes, 1 till 5.
Okay. And it takes place virtually. There is some in person, but generally it will be it'll be virtual forever and to access. And so again, that Mana Award goes to survivors of trafficking or their family members who have dreams and aspirations to carry on their loved one's legacy. Or it may be you might be a survivor directly of trafficking. At Her Wellness, we believe that advocacy, healing, and repair happens when we invest in the opportunities to actively work on ourselves while also caring for and serving others. Recipients of this award receive a scholarship to put towards nourishing their dreams, a year of mentorship for success with one of our Mana Council members, and will be offered free mental health counseling and advocacy services to support their healing. 2021, this will be the first year the Amana Award will have a scholarship, and we rely on the generosity of donations and sponsorships. 100% of our fundraising of these proceeds received go to the Amana Award recipient to cover scholarships, gifts, and healing services at no cost. So that is the Mana Award. I want to remind you, I think the ultimate point of this section of the presentation is to remind you, I remember, being a victim, that word didn't always sit with me well. And then to be a survivor, that didn't always sit with me well too, because I'm like, man, I don't always want to be seen as a person who's always struggling. I don't always want to be this person who's looked at like, I have to survive to live. And not that that's not true, but there comes a point too where maybe you're like, you know what? I want to be seen as thriving. And we're here through you through all aspects, victim, survivorship, thrivership. No matter what point you are in that journey, you are still worthy. You are enough. The medicine is within you. There's nothing more you have to be or do or say. You don't have to make more money. You don't have to stop doing what you're doing. You don't have to stop making mistakes. That is all your choice. That is all your choice. And no matter where you are, you deserve love, respect, honor, and to always remember that you are the medicine.
So for this slide, it talks about ACEs. Some of you may have heard about ACEs, the study of ACEs in surveys. You can actually take the ACEs, you can actually just Google it and then take it online. So a little bit about ACEs, stands for Adverse Childhood Experience. This is something that is about 20 plus years old, and it started off in 1985 with Dr. Vincent Folletti, and he works for the Kaiser Permanente hospital, and he was working with clients who were coming to the obesity clinic just to kind of lose some weight. And then he started noticing that about 50% of his patients were dropping out, even the ones who were doing well. And as he kind of looked more into it, he started to notice that a lot of his patients dropped out and then regained the weight right away. Even the ones who were doing really well, they would gain the weight back fairly quickly. And as he kind of started interviewing, he understood that many of his patients who dropped out, many of them had childhood trauma, and whether it's sexual trauma or whatever, and many of them started gaining back weight because it was a protective factor. So for his patients who gained back the weight and they were survivors and victims of, childhood assaults and sexual abuse, a lot of time they gain back weight so that way they won't look as appealing, so that way it reduces the chance of them becoming another victim. And then what really started for ACEs was in 1995 through 1997 was when they really started doing the ACE survey, and they surveyed over 17,000 patients who participated in this. And a lot of what you see on the screen right here talks about how, 4 or more ACEs, the chance of you having lung disease and as an adult smoking is 3 times as high. And again, I do want to just state that for the ACEs, there is 10 questions that you do answer, and it talks about, history of abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction, whether, was there any violence in your family? Was there anyone in your family incarcerated? And it talks about just any dysfunctions in your family. Was there any divorce? And just all of that going on. But just understanding the ACEs and taking that, just because you score high, I do want to let you know that that doesn't mean that you will experience all of this that is being shown on the screen. It's very individualized. So just because you score a 4 or more, that doesn't mean that you are guaranteed to be susceptible to all of this. So just know that that doesn't define your future, because you are in charge of your future. And it's good to know that, so that way you can kind of reflect back on that. And then once you understand that, what can we do about it? What can you do now that you understand that? Because if you weren't aware of it before, how can you address it? But now that you're aware of it, you're like, oh, so my chance is higher, but what do I want to do about it? Do I just want to just sit around and just not do anything? Or do I see that and I'm like, well, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to try to change that, or I don't want that to be passed down from generation to generation to my kids, to my grandkids. And that's going back to the historical trauma that we talk about. And that's one thing that we focus on at Her Wellness, is the historical trauma. And ACEs is just understanding trauma that you've experienced up until the age of 18. But then what do we do with that now that we know that? And again, just knowing that it is a 20-year-old survey that was conducted by Dr. Vince Folletti and also his colleagues. And then Malia, you can move to the next slide. And again, this slide talks about the pairs of ACEs. As you can see, the adverse childhood experience, maternal depression, emotional sexual abuse, substance abuse, domestic violence, homelessness, incarceration, mental health, divorce, physical and emotional neglect. But then there's also the adverse community environment. What's around you growing up? Was there discrimination? Did you grow up in poverty? Was there community disruption? Was there a lot of, people around you who struggled alongside with you? It's a community struggle. Was there a lack of opportunity for economic mobility and social capital, poor housing quality and affordability? And was there violence, around you or around your community? Because all of that plays a huge role into the ACEs as well. That's not being stated in ACEs, but we have to take into consideration what is around you. All of that plays a role. Same for your historical trauma. What was around your parents and your grandparents? Did they experience all of that too? So it really dives in deeper. That's one thing that we do at Her Wellness is we like to dive in deep and address the root cause, because you can heal once you start understanding the root cause, what's causing this, or why do I have this behavior? Why do I don't know why this situation caused me to react this way. I can't explain it. Oftentimes it's a lot of historical trauma that you may not even realize. And then Malia, you can move on to the next slide. And with that, I will pass it on to Jessica.
Thank you, John. I would like to take a moment for us, if you are able to unmute yourself if you want, or maybe write down in the chat, what is advocacy for you, relatives? It could be just a word, just crossing your mind. Maybe it will be an experience or maybe a person. But I really want you use your voice in this space and feel free to share with us what do you think is advocacy. I will give just maybe a few moments and reflect about it, and we can just continue. Okay. I would like share a little bit what it could be from my perspective. Advocacy, it could be support. You can support women, you can support other survivors. Advocacy is something personal. It could be cultural, and also for us, the relatives are the experts in their lives. And for that reason, they know what is the needs, and they have the rights to determine what they need, when, and how. Getting safe and healing requires time, just time. Sometimes you need to pause, slow down, reflect, take decisions. Sometimes you could connect with somebody, sometimes the nature, sometimes relationships, sometimes it's your friends around you or the advocates. When you really do that connection, is the base just you can start healing if you decide it's time for you. I will read some comments. Thank you. Empowering others, creating a space and opportunity for empower and exercise agency. Yes. Dignity and respect. Defending others' rights. Perfect. Means someone in your connect, someone to be with you through whatever you need. Thank you so much. To work when someone else be helped. Yes. giving someone a space to feel free, to be themselves when they are going through hardship, to take off the mask, like Malia said earlier. Yes, thank you, everybody. The advocacy is to be with you, walking in your side, like Malia mentioned it earlier, shoulder to shoulder. Sometimes we will just hold the mirror and be with you. What is the things we can do for advocacy? If you see in this picture, this is our big scare bags. Sometimes the family needs some clothes. This is one thing we can do, like for advocacy. Sometimes it's legal services. Sometimes the relatives don't really know what it is. It's fine. We can figure it out. We can talk. Sometimes it's emotional support. The advocacy for each person, it will be different. And sometimes you don't know what you need in the moment, but we can see it together and reflect about it. Advocacy is just to hold the space. It's just to have the time to really, you can do body scan or whatever kind of copy skill or tool you need to working in your path. I don't know, John, if you want to add something else about what is advocacy? I missed something.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you, relatives, for really engaging and letting us know what does advocacy mean to you. And one thing that we do is we love to engage with you and we want you to participate, feel free to share with us. Just because we're the ones speaking today doesn't mean that we're an expert on it. I don't like the terminology expert because I don't think no one's an expert at anything, because we're always learning. Things are always changing. So you can't really say that you're an expert on. You can say that you're very well knowledge on something, but just because we're in this seat talking to you today, that doesn't mean that we're an expert on anything. So that's why we encourage you to talk with us. And that's going back to like what Malia was talking about earlier, that we're all equal. You have knowledge that we don't know, and we have knowledge that we would like to share with you. But if you know something, or if you feel something and you would like for us to know, feel free to share it with us. We will always acknowledge that, because you are, we see you, we hear you, your voice matters. And that's what advocacy is, just holding that space, acknowledging what you're going through. And that's what we do here as advocates. Is it's about you. What do you want us to help you with? We want you to have that decision making, that empowerment, because maybe you've been through a situation of domestic violence or a sexual assault and you feel powerless. The whole point is to be alongside with you, support you, empower you, and just be there to support you. Sometimes we sit there with relatives and we're silent for a whole hour or even more. It depends on what you need. Sometimes you may not need to talk to anyone, but you want to be somewhere safe. That's what we're here for. If you're like, I want to talk about it and I want to share about my rights, we talk about that. So it's really about, what do you want? How can we help you during this time that you're coming to us for? It's not about, well, I believe this is best for you. You let us know and we provide you with what we do know. And even if we can't provide you with the services here, it's not about us making money. We don't care about the money. We care about the healing. And if we can heal or help you here with a specific service, we will connect you with other community partners as well, who believe in the same belief that we do of healing others. And, that's what's most important, is healing. How does healing look like for you? It's different for every single relatives that we serve. And, sometimes our services may not be the right one for you, and that's okay. That's the beauty of it, is that everyone is so unique and different. We don't have to come to just Her Wellness for everything. Her Wellness can provide up to a certain extent. And again, we are a smaller agency founded in 2017. So We're consistently growing our space. So we may not always have the capacity either at this very moment. But then we know that, well, we can partner up with other people or other agencies who do great work just like us. And so that's what advocacy is holding space, being there for you. I'm not here to tell you what to do because it's not about my healing. It's your healing, and we want to support that. We want you to have that voice, that decision, because maybe you didn't have a decision through whatever you're experiencing. Maybe you feel powerless. So we're here to honor your truth, what you're going through. And Malia, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add, or Joe.
Yeah. So what advocacy to me looks like, like, what does that look like here? What does that look like with experiences that we deal with as advocates on a regular basis? It might be that you want to go file a report at the police station, but you feel that the police officers were speaking to you unfairly, or that there was some sort of bias or discrimination. It might be that you tried to, you're trying to apply for apartments or housing, but it's overwhelming and you're not sure. Maybe you need, you need somebody to help you like navigate what are your, what does filling out the application look like? Maybe you are in need of food or healthcare, and you want to apply to the state for, for benefits, but you don't really know how to do that. Or there's like, you might need somebody to help you as you empower yourself to do those applications. Advocacy can look like you're ready to leave your abuser and you're not quite sure who to go, where to go, who to call, what your next step is. Advocates might help you develop a safety plan for when you are really ready to make that physical movement to get up and leave. We can help you plan that. Advocacy might look like you've been assaulted and you have to go to a hospital and you are scared and you don't know what to do and you don't want to call your parents, or you don't want to call a family. You don't want anyone knowing your business. An advocate can do that for you. Advocacy might look like emotional support, where maybe you're in a situation that's not ideal. Maybe you're in a situation where you're being trafficked and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to leave. I'm not ready. This isn't the right step for me, but I still need to talk about it. I still need to process it. I still need some emotional support. And those are just some examples. It might be the court. Maybe, you don't have a family member to go with you to the court. Maybe you need a letter to help write a letter to the court. Maybe you need some legal assistance or references. And although we don't provide legal assistance, we do know organizations who may be able to help you. Maybe you're just like, you know what, I don't know, things need to change. And I need to just change something in my life. I'm not sure exactly what that is or what that means, but I'm ready to just start thinking about it. And we can be a shoulder for you to lean on, or find an organization for you to just contemplate those things as you reflect on what it is you want and how you want your life to transform. We will get into the balance of, our wellness and our health. And we'll also leave some time for some questions, if anybody has any questions at the end of the presentation. Remember, if you need to stretch, you need some water, go and do that. I know I'm an antsy human being myself, so I feel like I need a little bit of movement. Okay. So the life balance wheel. Our wellness in the Western world, oftentimes we think of it as body, mind, spirit, but it's more to it than just that. And if we want to go ahead and, address our wellness in completion, right, in a holistic way, we can see that it's physical, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's it's personal, it's professional, it's spiritual. Joe, can I click on this? Is it going to do a little spinny thing? I'm going to see Joe.
It'll get bigger and then it'll spin.
Okay, let's try it. Let's give it a try. All right, it got bigger and there it is. All right, Joe, you go. Good job, Joe. So I want you to take a moment to recognize the balance in your life, and feel free always to chat in the chat box. Professionally, how many of you struggle with this? I won't name names. I know there's some people here right now who struggle with this. Are you working overtime? Are you consistently working overtime? Are you skipping lunch? Are you not setting boundaries? Do you take those days when you need it for your mental health? Do you take those days where you need it for your physical health? Are you prioritizing your work over your doctor's appointment when you know dang well you need a doctor? Are you taking all your vacation days? Are you taking your sick days? Are you allowing yourself the boundary to say no? And I know that's hard. That's really hard, because we live in a Western world that values what we can contribute, you know, whether that's a monetary tribute. Generally, it comes down to monetary, right? It all comes to work. What can we contribute? So in our professional world, how can we balance that? Personal. I love this part because this allows you the opportunity to be fearless about what it is that you want. And I think for a lot of us, we have this mental block of, oh, but I don't deserve that. Oh, but I'm never going to make enough money. Oh, but I'm never going to have the right relationship because I'm not good enough. Oh, you know, I'm too broken. I can't do this. Oh, I don't deserve better. When we focus on our personal health, there's a lot of things that we can do that can get us away from that negative self-talk. And they're listed right here. Just relax. You know what? If Netflix and ice cream, if you need Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's and you need that for the whole weekend, and you need that with some Netflix, and you need to binge watch you some Maid or some Charlie Brown, I don't know, whatever you're binge watching. It might be the silliest cartoons. It might be Friends. It might be some old school stuff. Who knows what it is? But the fact is sometimes you just need to be like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay not being productive. I'm okay not doing nothing from nothing. It is okay for me to just be. It is okay for me to sit. Now, I'm not saying we want to be there for the whole month. You know, you might want to Netflix and ice cream all weekend. Cool. But when we get to that point where the balance is, you know what, I've been Netflixing and ice creaming for the entirety of COVID. I myself kind of fell into that, right? That comes to a point where we have to realize that our immediate instant gratification, we have to weigh out what our delayed gratification is. But personal does allow you this opportunity to just be. For some of us, if you believe in manifestation, if you are into self-empowerment, if you are into being self-determined, if you are into the magic of you and creating what it is you want, allow yourself to fantasize. A lot of times I know when we think about goals and what we want in life, we put up those mental blocks. Oh, I can't do that because I don't have enough money. Oh, I can't do that because I don't have enough time. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. No, when we allow ourselves to fantasize, when we allow ourselves to vision board, when we allow ourselves to just think about what we dang well want without worrying about what we can or can't do in reality, that empowers us to employ the magic of who we are and allows ourselves the opportunity for our neural pathways to create connections. Write it down in a journal. Let yourself be free of fear for these moments, because it's safe to be free of fear in these moments. And it's amazing when you allow yourself to do that. And that's why I use the word fantasize, because sometimes it might help you suspend those blocks that you feel are your reality. Allow yourself to be the alchemist. You can take that and you can spin it into gold. Do it. Do it fearlessly, because in this space, there are no rules or laws that hold you back from what it is you want. Spiritual. And also, anyone feel free to unmute. John, Joe, Jesse. I'll just keep going unless I see a mic button release itself. Spiritual. Again, not here to tell you what your religion is, not here to tell you you need to have a religion, not here to tell you atheist is not okay, not here to tell you agnostic is not enough. You be what you're going to be. Spirit for you might be yoga. It might be going for a walk. It might be your sacred medicines. It might be journaling. It might be meditation. It might be forgiveness. It might be volunteering for a cause. You get to determine what spirit is to you. That again is your sacred choice. That's your sacred path, always. Oops, I went past emotional, but emotional too is laughing, movies, cuddling, connecting with people, practicing forgiveness, telling yourself you are gorgeous. And let me tell you, everyone out there, you are gorgeous. And this is something where you might be like, no, I'm not. Yeah, actually you are. You're a human being. You were born with flesh and teeth and eyeballs and hair and bones, and somehow your body like pumps its own blood and it's hard and it repairs itself. And when you get cut, it heals. And when you pluck your eyebrows, the hair grows back, and you're just like this amazingly beautiful person. That makes you gorgeous.
I would
And
like to add, Malia, for emotional. I think Diane shared with us about an application, and John, I think, is using that application in the phone. Joe, I have the application too, is I am, and it's phenomenal. You can have all the affirmations, whatever you have, and it's so nice. You have your phone, just reading, and be like, oh, I am beautiful. I deserve whatever I want. And also you can create your own ones. And it's just a good reminder to do it. So I just want to say it and share that for emotional is something you can really do in your phone. You can have free version.
Yeah.
thank you,
The
Jesse.
app is called I Am app. I can actually type it down, and it sends you like daily affirmation. It can be up to like 15 times per day. If you feel like that's what I need, then you can set it like that. You can set it for 10 times per day, where it sends you positive affirmation. And there's like so many different types of affirmation you can choose from. Maybe it's work related, maybe it's your own personal self. There's so many categories of what do you want for your phone, for that app to send you. And it sends like notifications on your phone. And sometimes you're like, well, let me take a second to check my phone. And then you see the affirmation, and it surprises you. You're like, oh, I forgot about this, or this is exactly what I need at this very moment. It is free, but there is like a premium version. I've never used a premium version. None of us have the premium version. The free version works just as well. I don't know what is being offered, but it's a great app, and it's something that I use. I think my setting right now is like 10 affirmations per day. So I believe you can set it up to like even 15 or even more. But it is a wonderful app, and that's that reminder, because we go through our days, our day-to-day activity in our life, and we're so busy we forget to think positive, and we need that reminder sometimes. And it's okay that you need that reminder, because we're stressed out, and taking that time to just sitting with it, reading it. What I like to do is whenever I read it, I close my eyes and I truly say it and believe in it and just listen to it and just give myself that moment to listen to that affirmation. Because you can read an affirmation, but if you don't absorb the what you're saying, or you don't believe, or you don't internalize what you're saying, then you're just reading just to be reading. So definitely, it's a wonderful app. I'll actually type it into the comment right now. And I believe it's both on, I have it on, my phone's an Apple, so it works. I believe it's also on Android, because I believe Diane, our lead therapist, has it too.
Thank
So
you,
it is,
Janet. Thank you,
yes.
Jesse.
I love that app. It's really great because like John said, like you can definitely really sit with the affirmations. I really like treating mine like a hype person. Like on my phone, someone just like hypes me up multiple times a day, and I am here for it because like there's this little person sitting in my phone who's just like, you know what? It's time to love and honor your body. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here for it. All right, little hype person. I'll talk with you. And it's good energy, right? Because all of those little things are doses in your life. And this is just one of the many wonderful things I have in my life. I have my cats. I have my little hype guy on my phone. I've got pretty magazines and good food. And each one of those is a little bit of medicine into my kit. And I say, okay, yep, this is a little bit of good that I'm going to bring into my day. And I just happen to carry one of them on my phone with me.
Okay, apparently it's a good app, y'all, because that's good to know. Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing. I wanted to say that whatever part of the balance wheel that you're looking at, I saw a TED Talk a few years ago that there was a doctor whose research was based on positive self-talk. And we as Americans say anywhere on average between 12 and 1,400 negative things to ourselves every single day. I've seen research where the numbers are actually higher. That's about 40,000 negative things we say to ourselves every month. And that's about 500,000 negative things that we say to ourselves every single year. Now, when you compound that onto every year of your life, since you've been cognizant of your being within this world, that is quite a bit of self-infliction and pain that we are putting on ourselves that is unnecessary. So when I say, you know, whether you're talking about the beauty or gorgeousness of you within, please also recognize it of you without. Your body hears it. Your body embodies it. And we do need to realize that our bodies are gifts. And for a long time, I struggled with that. A long time, and I know we all do, right? Because your Facebook feed's telling you you're too old, your Facebook feed is telling you you're too fat, your Facebook feed is telling you you need a bigger butt or a bigger chest and a smaller waist, and all that stuff is just, it's toxic. And so it's really important that we focus on what is beautiful about ourselves unapologetically, internally and externally. We also have the psychological, the physical. What it all comes down to is that we really do need to take time for our self-care. And this is where we can talk about our self-care strategies. Now, relatives, I encourage you, type in something you do for self-care in the chat box. At least one thing if you got one. I do want to say for self-care, yes, self-care can be going to the spa. However, I would put that at the very tip of the medicine kit. So we can talk about our medicine kit. Let me see if we got a little medicine kit. Okay, I'm gonna skip past culture as medicine. We can talk about that. Let's see if we have our, so this is our Hawaiian medicine wheel, the lokahi wheel. Hawaiians don't actually have a medicine wheel. However, in modern mental health situations in Hawaii, a lot of the people who are working with Native Hawaiians, and I believe this was made by a Native Hawaiian person, lokahi means unity, unison. They use this at the University of Hawaii at Hilo to help with their Native students to understand wellness. And this is just another way of looking at, I love this way. And it's very much what we went through with the wheel previous. So Joe, beautiful job on that. Thank you. Okay. So here where I'm going to go to the meat and potatoes of like, all right, so you all are talking about trauma. You are all talking about historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, complex trauma. You're talking about, you know, MMIW. Like, how do I apply that to my life? Like, what does that even mean for me? And this is where we can really get down into it. So we have what we call a medicine kit. Maybe for you, it might be a toolkit. But this is where we can take a look at those thoughts, beliefs, tools, actions, behaviors, exercises, people, anything in your life while you are walking your healing journey that you access when you need it. Okay, So if you ever play Minecraft, I sure as heck have never, but I've seen my kid play Minecraft for like the last decade. Okay. Now in Minecraft, the beauty of their inventory, right, is that I think it's limitless, right? That's the beauty of your medicine kit. That is the beauty of your toolkit, is that you can put in it whatever you want. You can take out of it whatever you want. You can access whatever you want. It is that proverbial thoughts, tools, behaviors, actions, belief, exercises, people, all those things. Now, I talk about the levels of medicine kit because at the top of the medicine kit, you might have Netflix and ice cream. You might have calling your friend to complain about something that happened in your day. You might have in the middle of your kit, you might have like your workout, or you might have like your, your songs that you love, your playlist. But then when we get to the bottom of the medicine kit, where it's time to dig deeper, and for all of you out there, you got your purse and you got your stuff that you really need, and like, you don't always need it. It's not your chapstick. It might be something that, you might, it's going to take more work. And when you get down there and you get it, that work was worth it. Those things at the bottom of your medicine kit, those are things like calling your mental health provider. Those are things like leaving a toxic relationship. Those are things like taking a good hard look in the mirror and taking responsibility for your healing. Because although you are not responsible for your trauma, you are completely responsible to take the steps and actions needed to heal that trauma. That's what's at the bottom of the kit. So some days you just need to pull out the Haagen-Dazs and call it a day. Some days in your medicine kit, that might be a free coupon to skip a shower and brushing your teeth and changing your undies. And those are very real things. Those are very valid things. But sometimes you might realize that you're ready to do the work. And that work is down there and it's ready for you when you're ready. It's like a seed. It is there always. It could be dormant for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years. But that seed is always there. That seed of hope, that seed of medicine for when you are ready to give it light, when you are ready to nurture it, when you are ready to give it the air, when you are ready to breathe into it, it is there for you. And you know what? That seed might always be there. Maybe you just let that seed be. Maybe it never does germinate, but just know it's always there at the bottom of your kit if and when you decide that you need that. And that's the hard work. That's when you have those of us who put off calling the doctor because we know there's something wrong, but we can't. We just can't, not yet. And whatever that might be calling your mental health provider. That might be having that difficult conversation with someone that you love that took you years to say what needed to be said. It might be cutting your vices. And you got to find that balance. You're going to dig deep, or you're going to go right in the center, or you're going to keep it surface. And all of them are valid. Each and every one of those things are valid. And that is your kit. You don't have to let anyone in that purse, in that bag, in that medicine kit. That's for you to determine. And you can also remove things out of there. Hey, you know what? This song just isn't healing for me anymore. Hey, you know what? Learning about this psychology, not healing for me anymore. Hey, you know what? This person, not healing for me anymore. So you can decide what you're going to put in and take out. Does any of our team members or Wakasa people or any relatives feel free to unmute if you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just 100% agree with that. And, just understanding that you do have that choice. Even sometimes when you feel like you don't have a choice, you do have that choice. And sometimes it's hard to think about, like, do I have a choice or do I not have a choice? And sometimes it may be two choice where you're just like, no choice is better than the other. And it's hard to make that decision. But you do have that choice, and we do want to remind you of that. And, you know, it is a hard decision. And that's why there's agencies like us and other agencies, should you feel like, well, I want to talk to someone. Or there's also advocates like Malia and Jessica who are not mandated reporters, who you can openly talk about this type of stuff. I am a mandated reporter, so it would be a little bit different for me on
So
what
don't
you're
talk
sharing.
to John. Don't talk to John. I'm just kidding, John. I'm just kidding, John.
So again, you know, just knowing that, and me and Malia, we always, you know, we consult as a team, but it's just the way, if you do talk with them and they need my advice, you know, the way how they word things would be differently around me, just because I am a mandated reporter. So just kind of understanding that and knowing that as well. And I love what Malia was talking about, how if it's not serving a purpose for you, or if you feel like it's not effective, you make that choice. You get to decide how you want to do it or what you want to do it with that medicine, because you get to decide what heals you or what is effective for you.
Thank you, John. And also to relatives, you know, and specifically addressing our relatives who are in situations of perhaps domestic violence or trafficking, things like that. And that truly does go with your choice of choosing not to leave, choosing to stay, or choosing to go. Nobody knows your life. Nobody knows what you're facing. Only you know that. So I don't want you to feel like there is some sense of guilt or shame that's associated with the decisions that you make. Again, that's your sacred choice, and we'll always go back to that.
I just want to pop in here really quick and say, it's totally fine to just ask questions. Like, if you don't know what the terms mean, like mandated reporter, therapist, social worker, what they might do for you or with you, feel free to ask, especially like at organizations like Her Wellness. We are so happy to talk with you. Feel free to join us on our lives, ask questions about services that we might do. Reach out to any of the other local people. We've got some other people who've been dropping some really good resources in our chat. Ask questions. What does it mean to have advocacy through their services? What does it mean, mandated report? What does it mean if I don't feel safe in my own home, but I don't want to leave? You know, how can I create safety for myself? Because it might not look like domestic violence. It might just be something like you don't feel comfortable with how your landlord treats you. And it's okay to talk about that. It's okay to not feel comfortable talking about things in front of people you know. So always feel free to ask questions. We definitely have a lot of safe places for you available at Her Wellness. And we're also going to drop some other resources where you can ask questions. Legal resources or just local resources with advocates, sexual assaults, counselors, all sorts of things. So if you feel like knowledge is a barrier, please, we really would love for you to ask, because we are here, we know a lot, and we're happy to share.
Thank you, Joe. And so we can move on to, and I'll ask you relatives directly, please feel free to share in the comment section. Your voice is what brings the light to this collective intentional healing space. We're doing community activated medicine right now, and you are the most important part of that. You're one in over 7 billion people on this planet, and no one brings the medicine or the light that you do. And so I will ask you, what can I do that I see as my gifts? What makes me feel strong? And Angie, I'll put you on the spot, Angie, if you're there and if you're listening.
Yes, I'm here. I'm ready.
Angie, what do you see as your gift and what makes you feel strong?
I feel my family makes me strong. Falling back on what my mom taught me growing up, and my sister is much older than me, and what my sister has taught me growing up, and falling back on everything that I have been given from my family has made me strong. And I feel that it is a gift. It is a gift to recognize that being raised in a family that is supportive is a privilege, and that was a gift that I had.
Yes, thank you, Angie, so much. But Angie, I want to probe a little bit further because that's so beautiful that you shared about your family and they do make you strong. But what gifts do you give? What gifts
See,
do you give?
you caught me. You caught me. Kindness.
Yes.
Kindness is what I like to bring. I feel like there isn't a lot of kindness anymore, unconditional kindness, and just making people feel. I love what you said, and I echoed it in the chat about power, about we are power and that we matter, and just helping to remind people that we matter. You matter.
Thank you, Angie. And I can see the kindness in your face. I can feel it in your voice. It is felt. Your warmth is felt.
Thank you,
So thank you
Maria.
for being one of those people.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to put Vanessa on the spot because I love to do that. I love putting people on the spot. So Vanessa, what do you see as your gifts and what makes you feel strong?
As my gifts, I see my creativity, be it like I feel, I don't know if strong is the right word, but I feel like proud and accomplished when I make things that make people happy. So be it like really good food, baked goods, or be it like fiber crafts, things like that. Like I love it when I can make something that makes somebody feel happy.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. You know, there's nothing like nonprofit people. They're always those people who give so much. And I'm sure being in your presence, getting those gifts is a fantastic thing, Vanessa. And I will echo that as well to our relatives who are here. Please, like, toot your own horn. My gosh, you got to combat those 1,400 horrible things you're going to say to yourself today. You got to combat those 500,000 things that you're going to say to yourself in a year. You know, what makes you strong? What are your gifts? That is our weapon against the negative self-talk, against that we are not enoughness, against that damage that we inflict on ourselves because we're reacting to a society that is ill, that tells us that we are not enough. So please toot your own horn in the comment section. Please say it. Feel free to unmute yourself if you feel that that you want to do that. Because remember, with those negative things we say to ourselves, can you imagine it if you said those things to your loved ones? What if you told your mom or your son or your daughter or your grandma or your boyfriend or your girlfriend? If you just had a list of 1,400 things every single day, well, you're horrible because your hair isn't cute, your clothes is outdated, you didn't, just think about that. So let's go ahead and give ourselves that opportunity. And then what gifts do other people see in me? What gifts do other people see in me? And feel free to put that in the comments section as well. And the beautiful question, one of the golden questions, what will help me foster, nurture, and grow these gifts? What will help me foster, nurture, and grow these gifts? I want you to know, relatives, that the Her Wellness Institute, we have free programming. We have free mental health. We have free occupational therapy. We have free healing modalities. We have holistic health. We have culture as medicine. We have community activated medicine. It is all housed at the Institute and the Her Wellness Center here in Milwaukee. What we did today is a circle of care. This was a virtual circle of care for all of our relatives, but we also provide circle of cares for individuals, particularly victims of crime and sexual assault. We have campsites, which are community activated medicine places. We get out into the community in real time. You see this beautiful gentleman right here above the campsites next to the drum with the orange wrap on his head. His name is Xavier Smart. If you go to this, is that the Shepherd Express, the current Shepherd Express, I think it is. He is featured in as an article. If you want to learn more about community activated medicine and what the Her Wellness Institute does, just pick up your Shepherd Express. He's right in there right now. You can learn more. Community activated medicine places We go out into universities, we go out to festivals, we go to where the people are and offer real-time healing right there in the moment, counseling, therapy, culture as medicine, teas, a listening ear, tobacco ties, smudging. You can see at the bottom of the campsite strip here in this